Hello and welcome to another edition of Be Still My Soul. And today we're looking at Psalm 28. Injustice can sting. The experience of injustice can really hurt. We see injustice everywhere in the world, and when we experience it, it can be really painful in our own lives. David, the writer of Psalm 28, experienced injustice in his life. And in response to the injustice that he experienced, he prays this prayer. And it's a model prayer for all of us when we face injustice, when we're treated badly, when life is not fair, when someone slanders you, or when you're misunderstood, or when you're treated by other people as just having a character that is unfit. And it's a prayer, is this psalm, that even though people might treat us badly, God, the judge of the universe, might vindicate us. There's three things I want us to see from this psalm. And first of all, I want us to see the cry from injustice. Like I said, nothing stings so sharply as injustice, and David experienced that. Perhaps here he was being falsely accused, maybe being accused of being a corrupt leader, or just generally slandered and criticised, and David's response is to pray. He says this, verse 1, "To you, O Lord, I call, my rock. Be not deaf to me, lest if you be silent to me, I become like those who go down to the pit. Hear the voice of my pleas for mercy, when I cry to you for help, when I lift up my hands towards your most holy sanctuary." He prays to the Lord. You see, prayer is an expression of dependence on the Lord for help. And he prays specifically towards God's sanctuary, towards God's holy place. The sanctuary, the word here for sanctuary is the word for the center of the tabernacle. The very presence of God. You see, the source of answered prayer, David sees, is the very presence of God himself. And David comes to God in prayer because God is his rock. God is dependable. He's strong. He's permanent. But also God is our rock. He acts on behalf of his people. This prayer is a desperate prayer. David is eager for God to answer now. Be not deaf to me. Be not silent to me. He fears going down to the pit. He fears dying under divine judgment, dying in disgrace, dying the death of a wicked man. And he wants God to show him mercy. Be merciful to me. Hear my pleas for mercy. God, the all-merciful God, he wants to come to his aid, because David knows he can't deliver himself. He can't save himself. When we see injustice in the world, and it is everywhere in the world, what can we actually do about it? Not a lot. Often not a lot. We can try in our own sphere of influence, but not a lot. And when we experience injustice in our lives, what can you and I do about it? Often not a lot. Life isn't fair. And so the first thing to do when we experience injustice is to cry to God for help. But secondly, we see here the call for justice. David isn't happy just to cry to God for help. He wants to call to God for justice. This is a bold request, a specific request. He takes time here in verses 3 to 5 to reason with God why he's made this request. And we should do the same. When you pray to God, go into detail with him about what you actually want, and be bold when you do it. Boldness and specificity are important in prayer. Well, this model prayer includes two things. First of all, it's a call to God for deliverance. Verse 3, "Do not drag me off with the wicked, with the workers of evil who speak peace with their neighbours, while evil is in their hearts." You see, David's concern is for God's honour. God's honor is at stake. Why? Because of an apparent lack of justice. God letting the wicked get away with stuff and letting the righteous go down into the pit. And that hurts him. Injustice really hurts him. It should really hurt us. And so he prays that he would be delivered from trouble, so that he wouldn't be likened to the wicked or judged with them, because that wouldn't be fair. But second, he calls for God to hold the wicked to account. Verse 4, he says, "Give to them according to their work, and according to the evil of their deeds. Give to them according to the work of their hands. Render them their due reward, because they do not regard the works of the Lord or the work of his hands. He will tear them down, and he will build them up no more." Now, this isn't vindictive. You see, the wicked don't respect God. God loves righteousness. He loves what's right. He created the world in righteousness. The world was perfect when he made it. And he has sent Jesus to die for the world, that the world might be redeemed and transformed and be a world of peace and justice once again. But you see, the wicked, by what they do, are working against God and against what God does. They're destroying God's works, as it were. They're working against peace, against justice, against righteousness. And so what do they deserve? Well, the right punishment for destroying the works of God is for them themselves to be destroyed, to get what they deserve. See, this is why Judgment Day is right and healthy. You see, when you and I see injustice in the world, don't we want there to be justice? When we see the wicked prospering, don't we want the wicked to be punished? When we see the righteous being oppressed, don't we want that oppression to be lifted? Don't we want Putin to be judged for what he's doing? Now, this is what we're praying when we say in the Lord's Prayer, "Deliver us from evil." We're calling out to God to hold the wicked to account. We want justice to be done and to be seen to be done. But finally, David has confidence in justice. David concludes his psalm in verses 6 to 9 with first of all, with some thanksgiving to God and then a prayer for God's people. First of all, he thanks God in anticipation of the response from God to his prayer for justice. He says this, verse 6, "Blessed be the Lord, for he has heard the voice of my pleas for mercy. The Lord is my shield and my strength. In him my heart trusts, and I am helped. My heart exults, and with my song I give thanks to him. The Lord is the strength of his people. He's the saving refuge of his anointed." See, so confident is David that God is just and therefore can't let wickedness off the hook, that he prays that God has already heard him and will answer him. He's sure of that. He's certain of that. He looks forward to an even greater deliverance when God will judge the world in righteousness. You see, David here, at the end of the psalm, is not in despair, even though there is still injustice all around him. But he's full of joy. He's not full of joy because there is injustice. He's not ignorant of that, but he's full of joy in the knowledge that God is his rock and will take care of him and will take care of his people and will bring about complete justice in this world one day. That's something to rejoice in. That's something that we can be certain of. And second, he prays for God's people in verse 9. "The Lord is the strength of his people. He is the saving refuge of his anointed." Or save your people. This is his prayer. Bless your heritage, be their shepherd, and carry them forever. See, God's people and God's king belong together, the individual and the community. And David, of course, he represented as the king God's kingship over the people. He's the shepherd king, as he were. He was a shepherd before he became a king, and he is their shepherd king. Shepherding, ruling, caring for, protecting, delivering God's people on behalf of God. But as the shepherd king, he's pointing forward to Jesus Christ. See, Jesus Christ is the ultimate shepherd king. David, as it were, was simply keeping the throne seat warm. Jesus Christ is the ultimate shepherd king, the one who not only cares for God's people, but who laid down his life for them. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd, and I lay down my life for the sheep, for God's sheep, to bring them into the fold of God. And because Jesus Christ has done that, he will not let any wolf destroy them. He will protect them from their enemies. He will vindicate them, and he will judge their enemies one day. See, this should give us confidence and boldness and even joy when we suffer injustice or see injustice in the world, because you and I can know for certain in Jesus Christ that God is just. He was just in Jesus, punishing Jesus for our sin, and he will be just one day, saving his people and judging the wicked. One day justice will be done and will be seen to be done, and that is something to rejoice in. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till next week, God bless.